106.3 FM.
What are the origins of the memorial project?
Well, we were invited a couple of years ago now. It seems a long time ago, but a couple of years ago we were invited to a limited competition to design a contemporary memorial. It was managed by the University of Lincoln on behalf of the Bomber Command Trust. So that's what we came up with, and the form is of two wing fragments. Obviously, as you can see, made from Core 10 steel, which is weathering steel, and the two wing fragments are held apart by a pair of perforated plates. So it's a little bit like wing structure, just like an aircraft. So that's the reference. Obviously, these guys were flyers, so there's a reference of flight there. And the main central spire. There's a bit of competition with their singing, isn't there? Yeah. And the main spire is surrounded by a series of walls, as you can see, with 120 name panels containing the 26,000 plus names of the Lincolnshire aircrew that were lost. And they'll be followed later by the rest of the aircrew from Bomber Command that were lost, which totals up to about 53,000 men, which is obviously all young men, in fact. And that's what the memorial is all about. It's all about those guys that gave their lives, but also, of course, the other veterans of the force as well. And some of those are here, as you can see. A lot of those are here today, and their families. So that's kind of where it came from. And it's followed on by at a later date with the Interpretation Centre, which is going to be called the Chadwick Centre, which again the university's compiling a database of digital archive. The history of Bomber Command, the story of the war for them. But that's subject to funding. The timing for that should be something like 2017.
How are you addressing the sustainability of it? So it's going to stay here for a very long time.
Yeah, indeed. It's going to be permanent. The idea was to make it so that it didn't need any maintenance. It would always be here. It's made of Core 10 steel, which is a weathering steel, so it rusts. And forms that beautiful orange patina, and then it stops rusting, so it's just a completely smooth, rusty orange colour, and it's just steel. It's made locally, actually. It's made in Scunthorpe, and it's on the nameplates are on 4mm thick plate, and it's actually laser cut. The names are laser cut right through the 4mm plate. So if you imagine 26,500 names on 120 panels, laser cut through the steel plates, and then they're bolted to thicker, heavier, curved steel walls, which obviously in these concentric circles around the central spire, in sort of fragments, just in the same way that the spire is a pair of wing fragments. The walls are also fragmented in sort of random pieces in these concentric circles.
And you can see the picturesque and famous Lincoln Cathedral from here at the spire. We can also see the spire from the cathedral. Was that always the intention? It
is indeed, and that relationship's always been very important. It's said that in fact the veterans will tell you this, that the cathedral is quite an important place in the flyers' lives, because when they got back into Lincolnshire you could see it. It's a flat county generally speaking, and you could see the cathedral, and they knew they were coming home, and they could see it. So there's that reference, and also physically on site. Obviously, the Lincoln Cathedral sits on the north escarpment, on the edge, visible for 20 odd miles quite easily, as we all from Lincoln know. And on the south escarpment facing it is the spire, and again that can be seen obviously from similar distance. So there was a lot of discussion with English Heritage, who are very concerned, quite rightly concerned about that relationship. They didn't want to sort of put any overbearing of the cathedral. And by what was here, so we had a lot of discussion about the size of it and its location, and to make sure that there was a balance, but it wasn't overbearing the cathedral.
How does it reflect the heritage of the county?
It's interestingly connected way with the cathedral, obviously, and it's just the fact that it is about flight. This is Bomber County. That's what it's about. It's about the guys that flew. It's about the guys that maintained the aircraft. It's about the people that flew them around, and all the support staff. That's Lincolnshire, and it's a Lincolnshire-based memorial. It's in the centre of Lincolnshire. When the trees are planted, actually on the behind me here, in between the Chadwick Centre and the memorial, we'll have 27 trees planted and what we call geo-referenced. In other words, it's a bit like a map of where the bases are in Lincolnshire, and there were 27 air bases. And one of the reasons that this was chosen as a site, it's a fantastic position, obviously, and it's a wide open space, like an airfield, and you get that kind of feeling of being in an airfield. But at the same time, it wasn't one of the bases, so it's not favouring any one of the bases. Obviously, we're near to Waddington, we're not very far from Scampton, but we're pretty much central, and it's all of those air bases in Lincolnshire that are important to it, and it sits in the centre, and the spire is the centre of the memorial circle, and then that is the centre of Lincolnshire. So there's that kind of relationship there. It's firmly rooted in Lincolnshire.
What kind of feedback have you got so far concerning the site and the spire and so on?
It's been tremendously good, actually. People have said to us very kind things. The veterans, as far as I know, I haven't spoken to all of them yet, but I will be doing today, as many as I can. But hopefully we've done them proud. I think it's obviously an enormous responsibility for us to be given the task of commemorating these guys. And it's with some nervousness that you approach these things. But no, I think people have, generally speaking, said good things. This is obviously the first time the walls have been seen, so I'll be very interested to see what people are thinking, what they think about it. And I think there have been a few comments about what's this rusty old steel and that sort of thing. But it's Core 10 is to my mind it's the modern bronze. It's today's bronze. It's an everlasting material. It will be here forever, and I think that's the great thing about it.